Good morning, everybody. There are a number of you still trickling in, but we will just start with an introduction. So firstly, welcome to today's webinar, Dubai Advantage. I'm Nicholas Cully, I'm the Group Sales Director. I'm going to give you a very short introduction before I pass over to Robert, who's going to be leading you through today's webinar. As you can see from the screen, there are going to be 4 speakers today. So without further ado, and whilst a few other attendees log on, I'd just like to first welcome and introduce you to Mr. Ibrahim Ali, who is the Director of the Investor Promotion Division at the Dubai FDI. We know Ibrahim very well and his team. We've been working together for many years now, and it's been a shame that we've not been able to get on the road for the last year because of obvious reasons, but we're hoping that we can start doing that again from 2022 and beyond. But today we look forward to hearing what you have to say, Ibrahim, albeit on a virtual basis. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule, and we look forward to hearing from you shortly. Secondly, our second guest speaker is Mr. Kaiser Hijazin, who is the Secretary General of the Arab Belgium Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce, and he is based in Brussels. This is the first time we've worked together, but now that we have Robert based in Brussels, we hope that this will be the first of many events that we can cooperate on. We look forward to hearing what you have to say about the ABLCC during the session today. Thank you for your time. Other speakers, as you may recognize, are from Sovereign. We have Zana Yablan Musa, who heads up our onshore division in our Dubai office, where she's also a director, along with me and a number of others. And we have Arun Gurung, who is the financial controller of the Middle East and Africa for the Sovereign Group, also based in our Dubai office. Both of them are well experienced in the region and in their professions, and they will give you great insight into their various different areas of expertise. And we look forward to hearing from you both too. So that's all from me. Without further ado, I'll just pass over to Robert Goris, who'll just give you a few housekeeping points and then pass on to today's speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick, and again, welcome to everybody at this webinar. Today, we will take 60 minutes of your time, so use it well. There's a way to add questions to the question box. So if you have any questions, please share them, then we will, after each presentation, ask them. If there are questions that we are not able to address during the presentation, we will address them afterwards by email. Also, for your that you're aware, this webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be shared afterwards and also shared online. I will be your moderator of today, and we'll try to manage everything according to the correct timeline. Then I would like to pass the floor, or the virtual floor, to Mr. Hijazin. Mr. Hijazin, as Nick already said, is the Secretary General of the Arab Belgium Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce. He has been with 42 years of experience between promoting trade and economic cooperation between Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Arab region. I think he has been of great value to the commercial relationships. So I hereby would like to give the floor to Mr. Hijazin to quickly explain about the Chamber and the value it can bring to us. Mr. Hijazin.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. First of all, good morning, sabah al khair. Bonjour, everybody. Really, it's a great pleasure and honor for me and to the Arab Belgium Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce to welcome you at this webinar entitled Dubai Advantage, organized by our new member and our partner, Sovereign Group, in collaboration with our Chamber of Commerce and Dubai FDI. Really, the organization of this webinar, it's very timely, as the World Expo Dubai will open doors within a couple of months, within 3 months, so that it's really the good timing to organize this webinar. Regarding our Chamber of Commerce, for about 45 years now, the Arab Belgian Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce has been honored to fulfill its core mission and vision, and to act as a recognized voice of business among Belgium, Luxembourg, and Arab official bodies. Indeed, the Arab Belgian Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce as a bridge between business communities from both sides, Belgian and Luxembourg side and the Arab side, in order to stimulate development of an economic and trade network fully integrated into the globalization process. Belgium is open to the world and has much to offer in sectors as varied as diverse as petrochemicals, pharmaceutical, biotechnology, automobile manufacturing, ICT, among others. Everybody knows now that Belgium is the capital of vaccine, as a large number of vaccines are produced in Belgium and distributed worldwide. On the other hand, the United Arab Emirates, which is the first economic partner of Belgium among Arab countries, are fully recognized as a rewarding environment for investment in the global economy. In the current context of the pandemic, both Belgium and United Arab Emirates have demonstrated their efficiency, know-how, and strong potential as frontline players in dealing with crisis. As a showcase of design, technology, and eco-friendliness, the Cleveland Clinic in Abu Dhabi is among the world's top hospitals. This is a good example out of many showing the successful cooperation between our two countries. There is a lot of projects are realized in Belgium, in United Arab Emirates, are Belgian companies. Last but not least, during the year 2015, during the princely mission headed by Her Royal Highness Princess Astrid, our Chamber of Commerce, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Chamber of Commerce of Dubai, and we are honored to collaborate with the Chamber of Commerce of Dubai since this time and since long time also. I want to conclude by pointing out the relation with the United Arab Emirates is not simply a relation of commerce and trade and economy level, but it's just a good at the social level also. It's very important to have this kind of relation between Belgium and United Arab Emirates. I wish you an enriching session, which I hope will open up new horizons for all of you. Wishing you all success and thank you for inviting our chamber. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hidjatin, for explaining the value of the relationship between the three countries and the work you are doing. So thank you very much. We are very happy that we are a member of the Arab Chamber of Commerce, and we're looking forward to many ways of cooperation in this way and helping, of course, bringing business to the Arab region. So thank you for that. Then I think we can go to our three main speakers. We have three speakers today on specific topics and many questions to answer. First of all, we will start with Mr. Ibrahim Ali on the advantage of Dubai, then Zana on the legal framework, and Arun on the VAT and substance. Nick already introduced Ibrahim, but a few lines because I think it is impressive. Director of Investment Promotion at Dubai FDI, helping companies to set up in Dubai, but also in its free zones to serve local, regional, and international markets. He started his career at the Department of Tourism and Commerce and has been managing overseas promotion for over 10 years. So he's been steering, I think, investment into the region, into FDI for a long time and has been very successful. So I don't think there's a better person to explain the advantage of Dubai than Mr. Ibrahim Ali. So hereby I give you the virtual floor.
Thank you very much, Robert. It is a great pleasure to join hands in hands with our strategic partner, the Sovereign Group, who for this webinar, thank you for organizing this webinar from your side. And of course, Sovereign Group has been our strategic partner at the Dubai Investment Development Agency, Dubai FDI, for many, many years. We've done quite a lot of joint activities physically for conferences and seminars and events back in London, UK, Shanghai, in China. And of course, now it's virtual, which is fine. It is all perfectly fine for us. It is an honor to virtually meet the Secretary General of the Arab, Belgium, Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Qaisar Hijazin, and to hear his keynote speech. It is absolutely an honor for us in Dubai to be collaborating with such a reputable Chamber of Commerce to have a mutual beneficial relationship between Luxembourg, Belgium, as well as Dubai United Arab Emirates. So I will be presenting Dubai Advantage to the audience, and hopefully this will be very informative. And Robert yourself will be helping me in moving the slide. So next slide, please. Well, we'll start with Dubai as a city. Next slide. To talk about that, Dubai is a vibrant city. It's a touristic attraction. We are bustling even at this time of the year, during the COVID-19. Business is open as usual here in Dubai, and everything is almost 90% open. Shopping centers, malls, if you talk about hotels, restaurants, cafes, the activities, the economic activities are absolutely back to normal when we talk about COVID-19. Showcasing on the screen is the Dubai's GDP contribution, which is, the majority goes into the retail and hospitality of 26%. That's why we are saying business is back as usual. We do not depend on oil, which you can see it on the screen. And then it moves into storage and transportation, almost 13%, with financial and insurance activities around 10%. Next slide, please. So here, when we mentioned that we are back to normal business, Dubai visitors, when we're talking about 2019, the healthy year for all of the world, we had 16.73 million visitors stayed at hotels and hotel apartments. Well, you'll see the huge drop in 2020. That is for all the cities and countries around the world because of the COVID-19 last year. But still, if you talk about the numbers of visitors that we had 5.5 million visitors stayed at hotels and hotel apartments during the tough time of the whole world, which is the coronavirus in 2020. But from January to April this year, we already had 1.67 million visitors stayed in hotels, and it is becoming very busy in Dubai. Next slide, please. So talking about Dubai as a gateway, we are the gateway to the Arabian Gulf countries, GCC, to the Middle East, to the whole continent of Africa, as well as the Indian subcontinent. So we are the perfect gateway to the 2.4 billion consumers. That is a fantastic direct market access for any international company that wants to have a platform in Dubai. Next slide, please. And of course, we have the direct access to many destinations in Europe by Emirates Airline and Fly Dubai. We are also connected to Brussels. It's a very important city for of all of the cities in Europe for Dubai and beyond. So we are well connected to the 6 continents by Emirates. Emirates network is back almost 90% to the old, the total destinations, and by end of July, they should be going to all of their destinations. This is the trade hub quickly, 22.4 million TEUs in the Jebel Ali ports capacity. It's a huge man-made port. We are the shipping hub in the region and the aviation hub in the region. Next slide, please. So Dubai is the hub for the whole of this region. We import all sorts of products from around the world and re-export 80% of these products to the 2.4 billion consumers surrounded by us. And when Mr. Hijazin mentioned about the Expo 2020 in Dubai, yes, it had to be postponed by all reasons from last year to this year. So it will open on 1st of October this year for the duration of 6 months. And the theme is Connecting Minds, Creating the Future, with the sub-themes being mobility, sustainability, and opportunity. This is going to be the first time ever it will be held in our region. And almost 90% of all the country pavilions are ready. So the rest will be ready by 1st of September. It will be a mega event that will attract lots of visitors, exhibitors, obviously, and many people who would like to really go back physically to the normal lives that we used to and attend such an expo. So it will be, inshallah, very successful one for the whole of this region and those who are participating. Next slide, please. So we are the aviation hub in this region. We are well connected to the 6 continents by Emirates Airlines, as well as Fly Dubai from Dubai. And you know, in 2019, the glory year, we had 88 million passengers went through the airport. That is all the international passengers. But if we speak for last year, 2020, we still had, as a Dubai airport, 26.2 million passengers that went through the airport despite the COVID-19 lockdowns, you know, the restrictions, the border closures, and so on. So still, for last year, 2020, Dubai airport is #1 in the world in terms of the international passengers. Next slide, please. So this is the Dubai trade statistics. It's steady from a year to the next up to 2019, but still for the last year, 2020, due to COVID-19, we had not been dropped in the trade because import, exports, and re-exports have been massive because of the cargo movements. Dubai is the hub for the cargo movements, shipping, as well as aviation. Emirates Sky Cargo was doing an absolutely great job moving at that time last year medical equipment, especially masks and, you know, different products that was needed to around the world. And this year, Emirates Sky Cargo is the best airline that is moving the vaccines, which ourselves in United Arab Emirates, we have reached almost 15 million doses taken for the 9.2 million population. So we are doing very good in the deployment of the vaccines in the region and around the world. Next slide, please. Dubai plan for 2021 is for the city, which will end, this plan is ending this year, and then we will have a new plan for up to 2025. But anyway, this is the plan for the city to be proactive, transparent, reliable, and innovative government, vibrant, tolerant, and inclusive multicultural society. We have residences living in Dubai, working investment from different 190 nationalities, offering sustainable economic growth, and to be an educated city, healthy for everyone, living and happy individuals. Next slide, please. Here we would like to showcase Smart Dubai. There is a government entity called Smart Dubai Government, is to make the city the happiest city on earth. We already had 100% of the government transactions paperless. Even our Department of Economic Development, which Dubai FDI is part of it, we cannot print anything. So we are already doing this. Over 130 initiatives have been launched by Smart Dubai since its inception. Next slide, please. Also talking about the smart government is the blockchain strategy. The strategy's goal is for Dubai to be the first blockchain-powered government driving the future economy and the world's first ever government really to execute all sorts of applications and transactions using the blockchain technology that was completed by last year. So the e-commerce from last year, it has been very successful. Sorry, when we had the lockdowns, and that was the best way to move food, medications, and everything during the COVID-19 last year. Next slide, please. Information technology. For Dubai, we have an open data law. This is very important for us. We are attracting a lot of the data centers from different parts of the world, especially from the USA. This was enacted in 2015 to improve the accessibility of the data and encourage innovation. Companies to be staged here in Dubai, and the entrepreneurship in the smart services provided for all. Next slide, please. Artificial intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, is the Dubai's government that wants to go forward, adding into the United Arab Emirates economy by 2035, $182 billion US. This is in many different sectors, around 15, but the most 5 important ones are here mentioned on the screen. Is the financial service sector, which is very important, and also followed by the healthcare sector, $22 billion. Then the transport segment. Dubai is the logistics hub for the whole of this region, 19 billion. Next slide, please. I'd like here to talk about the green technology, which is where the Dubai government going forward is taking the regional leadership position in developing the green economy. In the beginning, I mentioned that we do not depend on oil. In our GDP, it's only 2%. So this is very important, green technology in the renewable sector, as well as the solutions for water, waste management, and so on. $13.7 billion is to be invested in 5,000 megawatts in the Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum solar plant by 2030. So there's a huge opportunity for the green technology companies in Europe, especially in Belgium and Luxembourg, to join their resources here in Dubai. Next slide, please. The green technology continues to mention about the Shams Dubai. Shams means in Arabic sun. This is the Dubai Electricity and Water Authority's first in the whole of this region to introduce net metering for the solar power generation. Next slide, please. And Dubai's renewable energy target for last year it was 7%, and also for the next decade it should be 25%, and then by year 2050 we should reach 75% to be in a green economy. Next slide, please. Federal Science, Technology and Innovation Policy. We are targeting 40% an increase in the knowledge workers by end of this year. So there is there's still $82 billion in a pool to be spent in these most important segments and sectors. And you will see here the majority goes into the clean energy projects, plus the renewable energy that itself is a $54 billion, followed by aviation R&D and manufacturing of 11 billion. And then of course there is R&D in the priority sectors such as education and healthcare, and space sector investment. There is a 5.5 billion. Next slide, please. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously in the beginning I mentioned that retail is a very big segment of the many different sectors. So businesses as usual, all shopping centers and malls are open, and actually we are opening new shopping centers. Even due to the COVID-19, we see that people want really to go out. So it's not everything virtual, but shopping has to be also face-to-face. Dubai is first for international retailer presence. Dubai is ranked #1, the most important international shopping destination globally by CBRE, and there is around 7 square meters million. This is the leasable area as current supply available. So next slide, please. You will see that the contribution in the GDP for the retail is almost 26%. In the healthcare sector, where we are focusing for this webinar as well, is Dubai has mandated extensive healthcare insurance. This is for all residents, and as I mentioned, the deployment of the vaccines have been absolutely done in a very professional manner by the Ministry of Health on the federal level for the whole of UAE, and the Dubai Health Authority, which is the body authority for the Dubai government. So this is high priority investment opportunities available in innovations in primary care, ambulatory care, urgent care clinics, mental health, rehabilitation, and of course long-term care. Next slide, please. Number of international medical tourists into Dubai. Actually, when we, this was for up to 2019, the government of Dubai through the Dubai Health Authority has mandated to work on attracting tourists for medical treatments held here in Dubai with different private and public hospitals. So by year 2019, we had 350,000 plus medical tourists who came. Of course, last year, 2020, it was impossible to have medical tourists coming to Dubai. But for this year, you'll be surprised that we are having lots of tourists coming from different parts of the world, especially from Europe, such as France, Italy, Germany, UK, and others, and USA, as well as China, just to take vaccine, because they see it as it will take a long time to have such vaccines taken back home where they are. So they see Dubai is a perfect location that I can come, enjoy, and have a good holiday and take a vaccine here, where we have choices of Pfizer, Sinopharm, and AstraZeneca. Next slide, please. The Dubai medical tourism strategy up to end of this year is, of course, the target revenue supposed to be 2.6 billion dirhams from medical tourism of last year. And the vision is really to attract in the coming years more of hospitals, clinics, and pharmaceutical companies to set up in Dubai, where we have Dubai Healthcare City Authority that has a lot of, it's a free zone based here in Dubai. And also we have Dubai Science Park. It's another free zone that attracts biomedical sector and laboratories. Next slide, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a brief, quick of Dubai Advantage in, in those two main sectors, which is the technology and the healthcare. While we have this presentation goes long way with many, many different sectors, but we're focusing on these two for this specific webinar. And I hope I'm within the time frame that you slotted, Robert. And if there is anything that I can do for the guests attending this webinar, and we can answer their questions through email at any time. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to us.
Thank you very much also for the presentation and staying in time. Very much appreciated. I think great opportunities again, said in tech and healthcare, and the goal in 2050 to be 75% on the green economy. There were some questions on specifics. One of the questions was, hey, you're helping companies to enter the regions. But what are your services specifically? What does Dubai FDI specifically offer new companies?
Actually, we provide guidance to the companies who would like to set up in Dubai. So there are, from our side, we provide information, data, facts and figures. And also, we always tend to mention to the companies, what is exactly your business plan? Who is your audience? You know, if you want to serve or sell your product, is it the local market, the regional, or beyond? So we are advocacy for them, which is free of charge, part of the government. And then we forward such inquiry directly to three sides. First is whether it is, setting up within Dubai mainland, then we can directly go ahead and issue the license through our Department of Economic Development and register the company. Or if it is needed more of heavy work, then we say, okay, this is our strategic partner, Sovereign Group. They will do a great job. They are very professional, one of many of our strategic partners. The third is, in case a company wants to set up in a free zone, 100% ownership directly, and their global market is, having a platform in Dubai, but their market is the region and beyond, then we facilitate and connect them one of the 25 different free zones. So really, we are the facilitator and the guidance provider.
Understand. Okay, I think that's very very clear on how we can, you can help, and also how you send through and how Sovereign fits into that whole picture. So I would like to go to the next presentation of Zana. So again, thank you very much for your talk. Zana will speak on the legal framework. Zana is our qualified, is the qualified lawyer with a Master's of Law of the University of London and the European Studies from the University of Bologna. She has over 13 years of experience in the business and the legal experience. She focuses in our office on M&A in the Middle East, on individual and corporate clients, and she heads our onshore team. And I think she's great at motivating our team, or her team, to take the extra mile. So with this, Zana, the floor is yours to discuss the legal framework.
Thank you very much, Robert, and thank you to all attendees joining us this morning or today, depends on the time zone. I will try to give a general overview on the legal landscape and the legal culture of the UAE, but mainly focusing on the recent development and changes in the UAE. And I have received a lot of feedback that our clients and also all the attendees want to hear more about these new changes. Let me start by saying that United Arab Emirates, the UAE, is a federation of seven emirates, and with the capital in Abu Dhabi, but with the financial and business strategic center in Dubai. Sovereign's head office as well for the whole region is in the H Hotel in Dubai, where both Arun and I and Ibrahim are sitting right now and giving this webinar. And we have other emirates who are as well very important, and we cater to them through our Dubai and Abu Dhabi office. Next slide, please, Robert. Thank you. The UAE constitution forms the foundation of the company's legal framework, and the federation has the jurisdiction of over all matters that have been assigned to the federation through the UAE constitution. That means that there are federal major codes, specifically civil, commercial, and employment codes that are applicable on a federal level to all the emirates. However, each of the emirates has their own ruler that actually streamlines the policies and the regulation between the emirates. Each of the emirates has also independency with all the matters outside the federal legislation. So that you will see later in my presentation, there are some differences between the regulations, procedures, especially in business and commerce, between, let's say, specifically Abu Dhabi and Dubai Emirates. The legal system in the UAE is based both on civil law and the Islamic Sharia law. But for the foreign investors and all the investors coming to the UAE, it is very important to know that there are two common law jurisdictions that actually apply directly, either the UK law or the specific law of that jurisdiction that is based on the UK common laws. We have the Dubai International Financial Center, which is the DIFC in Dubai, and the Abu Dhabi Global Markets, which is the ADGM in Abu Dhabi. Both of these financial centers have their own independent courts, as well as arbitration that are in English, and also all the foreign investors coming to the UAE can opt in their commercial transactions to choose this jurisdiction as the governing law and governing body for their contracts. Next slide, please, Robert. Thank you. When planning to come to the UAE, in general, the foreign investors would have two options, and that is signing a commercial agency representation with a UAE agent or a representative, or establishing a direct legal presence. In general, I'm here for 7 years, and I would say 99% of the investors would go for establishing a direct entity, because the commercial agency has the separate rules and has to be registered with the Ministry of Economy, where the local agent takes a commission percentage. So having its own independent business is very important for the foreign investors. When we talk about establishing a legal presence directly in the UAE, the most common type of legal presence is the limited liability company, an LLC, which is common in all the jurisdictions worldwide. Then we do also have the option to have a rep office or a foreign branch, or establish an entity in a free zone, which can be a branch or again an LLC. So we do have a variety of legal types that our foreign investors can use, depending on their businesses, the legal structure, and what they want to achieve. So choosing the right vehicle, especially between the mainland and the free zone, will depend on the options that the investor want to have, and also this, like Ibrahim mentioned, a strategic market. Are they interested in the local market or the wider region? For all the options mentioned before, I would say there are two relevant laws that everybody should be aware of, and this is the Federal Law number 2 from 2015 concerning commercial companies, which is the company law of the UAE. Preceding this law was a law from 1984, so you can see that in the recent years, and if you see the slide, we have a trend of modernizing the local UAE's law and adapting it to the world commercial trends. So the UAE has amended in 2015 the commercial law, which followed by several other laws. In 2018, we had the federal direct investment law, which a bit widened the 100% foreign ownership. Very important law in April 2019 is the ESR, Economic Substance Law, and Arun will give more details about it. In 2019, we have a new residency regulation, which allows for 5 and 10 years golden visas for foreign investors. After this law and regulation, we had also many other options for investors, especially during COVID. We had freelance visas for a lot of IT services and tech services. We are now looking at as well having a retirement visa for certain types and with certain requirements. And I would say in 2019, we ended with a positive list from Dubai FDI for 100% ownership in certain sectors. All of this has come, I would say, to a culmination. Next slide, please. Thank you, Robert. Where we had the long-expected federal decree law 26 in December 2020. In this decree amended a lot of regulations that we had from the federal law 2015. And I would say the most important amendment is amendment to the Article 10, which imposed the restriction on foreign ownership for the onshore companies. The UAE Minister of Economy, Mr. Abdullah Harmari, has said that this change and this amendment represent actually the true UAE vision and the directives of the rulers where they see the UAE going from now on. So that means that there will be a lot more changes, a lot more flexibilities that will come. What is important to say is that this new amendment has been implemented now from 1st of June 2021, and we have a full ownership in all economic sectors except specific strategic impact activities which are subject to each emirate. Since 1st of June, the Emirate of Dubai has issued their specific list of more than 1,000 commercial industrial activities that are open to 100% ownership. This list in Dubai is focused more on commercial and industrial activities. And we see in Abu Dhabi as well a wide list of over 1,100 activities, but with more focus on professional and manufacturing activities. So we see here as well a bit of a different approach between the Emirates, but still with the same outcome where we have now 100% foreign ownership, not only in the free zones, but in mainland. For all these, the companies want to have their presence and access to the local market. The second important change to the company's law is the removal of the UAE National Service Agent for foreign branches. This will affect all the foreign companies, especially in service and consultancy industry, that want to branch out directly into the UAE. And now from going forward, they don't need to appoint a local service agent in order to incorporate their trade licenses. Next slide. Thank you. With all these new changes, there have been questions asked: where does this leave the free zones? Will this affect the numerous free zones we have in the UAE and specifically in Dubai? And I would say the short answer is no, because the free zones have always been an industry-specific trade zone areas which focus on specific industries and provided different kind of benefits to the foreign investors, especially when it comes to exemptions from custom duties that they have, as well as some other exemptions and guarantees from each free zone authorities. Where I would also mention, let's say, the Dubai South Free Zone, which is located on the Maktoum Airport, close to the Dubai 2020 Expo site, which is strategically important for all the companies coming to Expo 2020. Dubai Internet City is a hub for all the tech industry. We have all the international well-known companies, Google, Microsoft, Oracle there, and a very healthy infrastructure. So free zones are still very important to all the companies that are looking to trade, interact with the wider region, not just the UAE as a targeted market. Next slide. Thanks, Robert.
That's it.
And yeah, so I believe there was one more slide, but it's okay.
I think it's, I don't know. Maybe it dropped off in the communication. However, I think, Zana, it was a clear presentation on the value of Dubai and how the organization or the legal framework fits together, and how the value of the new law for 100% ownership. And on that, there was a question. So maybe we can talk on this specifically, because the question was, are there any specific requirements imposed on companies that would register as 100% ownership? So what are the requirements, or are there specific requirements imposed?
As of now, there are no specific capital requirements, let's say, for the company coming in to pay up a high share capital. There is also no specific emiratization requirements. I do believe we will be seeing some emiratization requirements going forward. Also, the use of new technology is not strictly imposed, but this is a new law, as you know, and every new law will need a bit of time for implementation. But we are here to help. We have done a lot of analysis and strategic papers for our clients, established in the UAE for potential restructuring and clients coming into the market. But I would say for now, the registration of the FDI companies will go ahead in the same manner as the previous LLCs with 51% foreign shareholder.
And that 100% ownership, is that possible for every industry? For example, one of the focus areas are healthcare and trading. Are there also available for 100% ownership there?
Again, we have now the official list issued by each Emirates. And we do have some differences between the Emirates. For example, in Dubai, there is a heavy focus on commercial activities and industrial activities. So, for example, all the retailers and sales in Dubai will now be able to register with 100% ownership through this new law amendments. However, for healthcare, there are certain activities that are open for the 100% ownership, but still certain activities may need participation of the local shareholding. But again, these specific inquiries can be analyzed and provided a clear step plan. In Abu Dhabi, it's also different. They are more focused on professional activities where sales is a bit more limited. So we see in Abu Dhabi, the activities that are trading activities are a lot more restricted to 100% full ownership than in Dubai. But again, this has been a milestone in the UAE, and I think Ibrahim will agree with me. And this will lead to, I believe, the full 100% ownership for all activities in the going years.
I saw during the presentation, I saw Ibrahim going like this often, so I think you were spot on many of the points, Zana. So thank you very much for this presentation. I think my takeaway on this is like, okay, there's one of the big milestones is the 100% ownership. There's a new law, still some things need to be interpreted, and I think along the way there will be a few changes, but I think the door is open. I think that's basically the key message there. So then on that, I would like to go to our third speaker and our last, but we keep the best for last. Arun, our speaker, who will be talking on VAT and substance. Arun is our CAA qualified accountant and a member of the UAE Accountants and Auditors Association. He is an MBA graduate and has more than 12 years of experience in finance in many different companies and very different functions. Currently, he's the head of our finance group in the Middle East, and yeah, I think he has been instrumental for growth of our sovereign accounting services in the region. And he manages our team, his team, and our team of clients from startups to I think stock exchange listed companies. So basically, I think he knows, definitely Arun knows his stuff when it comes to accounting and VAT and UBO in the UAE, in Dubai. So with that, Arun, the digital floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Robert. And thank you all my fellow panelists, and thank you to all the attendees for joining us today for the webinar. Okay, so basically I want to highlight a couple of key regulations, which if we are going to set up in UAE, we really need to consider the implication of these regulations in your business. And ideally, rather than looking at it at later stage, if this can be reviewed at the early stage when we are actually incorporating the company, this would help businesses, avoid a lot of hassle down the line, basically. So the main one is the VAT in the UAE. It's been introduced for last 3.5 years now, fairly new for this part of the world. But as you can see, the VAT registration threshold, we have a mandatory and voluntary. It's quite high compared to most of the European countries. I think France has got roughly the same amount, but for the rest of the jurisdiction, I think it's between 15, 25, around that area. So it's a fairly high registration threshold. You obviously have the voluntary registration threshold as well at 42,000, approximate amount 42,500 euros. The VAT rates are very simple, straightforward. We have taxable supplies, we have exempted supplies. If it's a taxable supply, it could be 5%. That's a flat rate and 0 rated. And if it's exempted, then there's no VAT, it's nil. The way I try and explain to the clients is basically there are a handful of sector which is generated, and those are listed there: education, healthcare, transportation, residential properties, right? And then there are a few which are exempt, mainly the sale of bare land or financial services, margin-based specifically. And then the rest, everything else is standard rated. And it's good in a way, because it's simple, straightforward, and the rate is, compared to other jurisdictions, it's still very low, comparatively very low, 5%. Right. So if we can move to the next slide, Robert, please. Thank you. So what I normally tend to advise to the clients is, as I mentioned earlier on, this regulation is very key. It's very integral part of your business once you start running the business from the day one. So the VAT consultation at the very early stage on reviewing what type of transactions are you going to take. Just because you are in health sector business, that doesn't mean whatever you supply is going to be zero rated. So there may be other services underneath that you are providing, which may actually account for 5% VAT. So that needs to be looked at. And are you dealing in goods or are you dealing in services? who are your customers? Are you going to be selling within the UAE, or are you going to be selling outside of UAE? Are you going to do exports? If you are selling within UAE, are you doing a business-to-business type of transaction, or are you doing business-to-customer type of transaction? So all of those need to be considered, and ideally, that would allow maybe structure your entity in certain manner. So rather than leaving it for late, my suggestion would be for businesses setting up, please consider this right at the beginning, early stage of your company incorporation. Then comes the VAT registration. Obviously, the mandatory registration threshold is there. There are penalties if it's not been done on time, so you've got to keep an eye on that. Many of our clients, the European-based clients who are setting up here, they have a central accounting software like SAP or SAIS, right? And they would want the same software to be implemented here, but tweaked to the UAE's VAT law. So that is another area that you need to consider. That is possible. We can assist, and you would want to review that process thoroughly. Some clients prefer just outright outsource the whole process because it's not only about like how much VAT can be charged to a particular service. It's also about how much can we claim on any activities. Can we claim the full input VAT? The invoice template is very specific for the UAE jurisdiction. So, and then there is the audit trail. That there's a report, a specific report. If you are audited by the authorities, then you will have to produce, and there are very specific type of information that needs to be captured. So, rather than doing all the hassle, some clients prefer to just outsource the whole services. And once you are VAT registered, then you have the obligation to do the VAT returns on a quarterly basis or on a monthly basis, depending on the volume of your transaction. And ultimately, if you are a new startup or a new company setting up, you may be in a position where you actually have to claim the input VAT from the authority. And so the VAT recovery is also a key portion. It helps you with your cash flow. So that's in a nutshell, the VAT legislation in the UAE and the importance, how there are various aspects of the VAT that you need to consider when setting up in the UAE. Now, if we can move to the next slide, please. The other one is, and again, this is a very recent one, as Jana mentioned earlier on, economic substance regulation. And the clue is in the name. Basically, we want to ascertain that there is an economic presence within the UAE, that there is just not an offshore shell company being created just to shift funds from a high tax jurisdiction to a low tax jurisdiction. So for that reason, basically, these regulations have been put in place, and it's very, very crucial regulations. And all companies setting up in UAE should take consideration of this in great detail. Now, who falls under the scope of this? Essentially everyone, like UAE onshore companies, offshore companies, free zone branches, foreign branch, even a rep office, partnership, everyone falls in this category. What are the activities are we talking about here? So I've listed there are 9 key activities: banking, insurance, investment, shipping. So if you are going to undertake any of these activities, then you fall under the scope of economic substance regulation. Right. So if this is an annual requirement, every year you need to assess. Now, if you fall under the category and you are found to be undertaking relevant activities, then you need to make a notification filing after 6 months of the end of the financial year. And if you are generating any revenue from these relevant activities, that means you need to file a full detailed report 12 months after the end of the financial period. Now, the key thing here is all these requirements are after 6 months or 12 months of the end of the financial year. So tendency is people don't think about it until it's time for the deadline. But when it's the time to file it, you are reporting something which happened at least 12 months ago. And have you put things in place? Because the other key element is if you are found undertaking relevant activities and you're generating relevant income, then you need to pass an economic substance test, which is the next slide, Robert, please. So there are three categories on the economic substance test. In a sense, you need to be able to prove this is a self-assessment filing, basically. So you need to be able to prove that there is an economic substance in the UAE. So one is activities. Are you undertaking those core income generating activities in the UAE? Second, is it managed and directed in the UAE? Do we have board meetings happening in the UAE? At least one board meeting is required in the UAE. Directors may have to be physically present in the UAE. Board meeting minutes needs to be saved, maintained in the UAE. So those activities need to be undertaken. And the administrative test, in a sense, do we have the full-time employees, adequate full-time employees in the UAE? Do we have the people who have the appropriate qualifications? Do we have enough operating expenses, physical assets? Do we have an office? And you are allowed an outsourcing arrangement. You can outsource these activities, but do you have that in place? So all of those need to be done. Now, again, the point I was trying to make earlier is this people tend to look at it at the time when it's filing, when it's already too late, right? So this need to be discussed at the very beginning when you have set up your company, and what activities are you going to undertake. And then in the consultation phase, we can advise you, guide you in the sense like, okay, these are the activities that you need to ensure is being maintained, or you need to have these type of resources, which would allow you to ensure that you are meeting the economic substance test at the later date. Right? So that's about economic substance test. And finally, a real quick one on the ultimate beneficial owner reporting. Financial free zones like DIFC and ADGM does not require it, but for all the other jurisdictions, basically this is something which is required. I think the deadline was yesterday for majority of the jurisdiction. So a real quick rundown on this one. We're looking at a natural person. There is a lot of confusion that, okay, could it be another company which holds the company in UAE? Can we declare that as ultimate beneficial owner? No, we are specifically looking for a natural person. There could be a multiple layer. It doesn't have to be just one above you. Ideally, you should hold a minimum of 25% or more, that individual, right? And then, if you don't have that 25%, but you still have a control in a sense that you can hire or fire majority of the directors of the UAE company, then you are still considered as the ultimate beneficial owner. And eventually, if you can't really find it from all these categories, then any senior management official in the company will be considered a UBO for the reporting purpose. So that's another piece of legislation which we need to keep a close eye on. And that basically concludes my presentation here.
Thank you very much for this presentation, Arun, on the topics of VAT and substance. I think my key takeaway is plan in advance. Don't let it wait to the last moment. I think that's also when you do your personal taxes. Don't do it the last day. Try to do it during the day, because otherwise you don't really understand it anymore. And I think this, what I think take away also from the substance test, many people see it as a list of things I need to check box. I think many of these things has to do with common sense. Like, is there appropriate investment? Is there appropriate number of people working? So it needs to be sensible, right? It should not be just a checklist, but it needs to fit within your business plan. I think one question that I had was regarding the business activities. Like, what is one of the business activities I know we do a lot with Sovereign is the distribution and service center. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, majority of the companies fall. So all the trading activities would more or less falls under the distribution activities. And so there are like two activities involved in the distribution and service center. So basically, if you are purchasing a goods from a company in Europe wants to set up a retail store in Dubai Mall. The Dubai Mall company basically buys the goods from their parent company in Switzerland, Belgium, so let's say, and then sells it in locally here. That falls under distribution. So if you are buying it from a foreign connected party, that falls under distribution. Whereas on the other side, if it's a service center, and we do have a lot of clients who basically set up this type of structure where they are set up here, and they are essentially providing marketing and sales activities on the ground on behalf of their parent company in Europe. So in that case, again, you are providing a service to your parent company or your foreign connected party. So that also, again, then falls under the economic substance regulation scope.
All right, understand. Thank you very much for that, because we know that we have a lot of people in that specific field. So as always, thank you very much for that clarification. We are almost at the end of time. I want to, as I promised you, I will take 60 minutes of your time. So hereby I will conclude the official part of the presentations. Afterwards, after this announcement, I will go back quickly to a few questions I saw from the audience, but I know that the audience that is able to leave, this is all the content has been shared. Later, we will share the presentation on digitally, so the recording. So in the Q&A, you can maybe have a little bit extra knowledge. Tomorrow, we will send you also a free copy of your Doing Business in the UAE book with some highlights on many of the stuff that has been discussed. So thank you very much for joining already. And if you want to connect to me on LinkedIn, that's very possible. So thank you again. But so because there are some questions that were interesting, I want to go back to Ibrahim. A question that was showing up is that you've changed. You said healthcare and technology is a key thing, but I presume that due to COVID, many things have changed. What has changed due to COVID? Has your economic focus shifted?
Well, actually, Robert, before coronavirus spread, in the many years before, we had more than 12 sectors and segments of different industries focusing on attracting businesses to Dubai. Due to COVID-19 last year, we have changed our strategy immediately and focused on only 4 main sectors. The first one is obviously healthcare, by all means, has been really in need. And the second one is food and agribusiness. So that's really very important. And the third one is technology. And the fourth one is the logistics, because Dubai is the hub of the shipping and aviation logistics. So I focused from last year up to now and probably towards next year into these 4 main sectors to attract businesses. And these businesses who set up in Dubai can grow in the region. Obviously, you know, there are other sectors like retail. So we are, you know, retail, hospitality, it is growing slowly, and Dubai is seeing more hotels are opening. New hotels have just. Yeah. So.
Okay. All right. Sorry. My connection was a little bit difficult. Thank you very much. So clearly, there's due to the corona, you've focused, I think, more and focused on less sectors, but therefore being able to double down on those sectors and promote them well. I think that clarifies a lot. One of the questions also came in for Arun. Many people that said there's a comment on there's places where there's no VAT, areas there's no VAT. Somebody said about designated zones or bonded zones. Does that exist in the UAE, and can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. So we use the term designated zone. So there are fenced free zones, fenced geographical area, basically, which are classified as a designated zone. And technically, yes, they are VAT-free zone. But again, not everything, just because you are in there, does not necessarily mean that everything you do will be VAT-free. A quick example, basically, one of our clients who buys a lot of mobile phones in bulk from abroad, get it refurbished in a DAFJA free zone, which is a designated zone, get it refurbished there, and then sells it in the African continent in huge volume. So that's perfectly VAT-free. That's out of scope for the VAT because you are buying it from outside and then selling it outside. However, then recently they started doing buying goods, receiving phones from third parties and just providing the service of refurbishing it and returning it back to them. Now they are still based in the designated free zone, but now instead of dealing in goods, they are dealing in services. All of a sudden, you are not entitled for out of scope VAT. You are supposed to charge 5% VAT. So it's yes, there are zones, but you really need to look at what activities you are undertaking.
So again, coming back to what you have said earlier, planning in advance is very important in these kind of instances. So I think with these questions, we are there. I think maybe if there's other questions, we will address them later by email. I want to thank all the speakers, Mr. Hitazin, Ibrahim, Zana, and Arun, for sharing all your information and knowledge with our participants. Again, tomorrow there will be an email with the recording and a free copy in your mailbox of the doing business in the UAE. So thank you very much, everybody. And hopefully we will cooperate in the future and give more valuable information to our viewers. So thank you very much and have a good day or afternoon.
Thank you.